She cleaned a millionaire's garden for food, but when he followed her home, he couldn't believe his eyes. The sun hadn't yet fully risen when the girl slipped through the wrought-iron gates of the Langston estate. Clutching a ragged cloth and a rusted metal bucket, she moved swiftly across the dewy grass, her bare feet silent on the cold earth. She was no more than 14, her frame small but wiry, her hands already weathered with the calluses of someone twice her age. No one noticed her. No one ever did. Every morning before the housekeepers arrived, she would kneel beside the marble fountain that marked the center of the millionaire's garden, an opulent display of carved angels and goldfish ponds, and scrub its already spotless stone. It wasn't assigned work. No one paid her. But she'd learned early that if she worked hard enough, cleaned enough, and kept quiet, the cook would sometimes leave her half a crust of bread near the compost bin. Today was no different. The girl worked in silence, the hem of her dress soaked with fountain water, her arms aching, but she didn't pause. Her stomach had long stopped growling. It had surrendered. What she really craved wasn't just food, it was hope, dignity, the feeling of being seen. From the second-floor window of the mansion, William Langston III adjusted the cuff of his silk shirt and sipped his black coffee. He had watched her for the past 3 mornings now. At first he thought she might be a servant's child or a trespasser, but something about her deliberate care, her bowed head, her unwavering focus, it stirred something buried deep inside him. He had built empires, owned fleets of ships, but the sight of this girl scrubbing marble with such desperation unsettled him in a way billion-dollar deals never could. Today, he decided, he wouldn't just watch. As the girl finished wiping down the last stone cherub, she looked up and noticed the faintest shadow in the window. Her breath caught, but the figure was already gone. She gathered her things and rose quickly, taking one last look at the garden she adored, though it never belonged to her, and disappeared down the hill beyond the gates. Inside, William handed his coffee to a passing butler and grabbed his coat. "Hold my calls," he said sharply, ignoring the puzzled look from his assistant. With no clear reason other than instinct, he followed the path she had taken, his polished shoes slipping slightly on the morning dew. He didn't know what he expected to find. A rundown shack, a camp. He just knew he needed to understand. Half a mile past the estate fence, he spotted her again, walking fast now, her head down. He followed at a distance. She turned down a gravel path, then ducked into a narrow alley between 2 crumbling brick buildings. William hesitated at the entrance of the alley. Then, heart-pounding, he stepped forward and froze. What he saw at the end of the alley made his knees weaken. It wasn't just the poverty. It wasn't just the makeshift shelter of torn plastic and wood. It was a photograph, old, sun-bleached, taped to the wall of the girl's lean-to. And in that photo was him. William blinked, disoriented. The alley was silent, except for the distant hum of a delivery truck. He took a few cautious steps toward the shelter, heart hammering in his chest. The photograph was unmistakable, an image of him from nearly 15 years ago, standing beside a woman he hadn't seen in over a decade. He leaned closer, squinting at the grainy picture. He was smiling, arm wrapped around a woman with deep brown eyes and a tender expression. Her name came to him like a ghost. Clara Reyes, the girl who'd worked in the archives of one of his early companies. She had vanished from his life without a trace after a brief, intense affair that had burned out as quickly as it began. The young girl, the one who scrubbed his marble fountain every morning, emerged from the lean-to just as he turned. She froze. Her hands clutched a sack of stale bread. Her dark eyes met his, wide with fear. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice quiet but firm. William straightened, his polished presence absurd in the decay around him. "I could ask you the same." The girl backed up slightly defensive. "You followed me." "I did," he admitted, "because I've seen you, at my house, every day, cleaning, starving, and now..." He motioned toward the photo. "Why is that picture here?" The girl hesitated, her chest rising and falling quickly. "That's my mother. She died last year." Her voice cracked on the last word. but she didn't cry. William stared at her. The resemblance was clearer now, her jawline, the way her eyebrows arched, the flicker of intensity in her gaze. "What was her name?" he asked, already knowing. Clara Reyes." William stumbled back a step, breath catching, the world tilted. "And your—" She hesitated again. "My name is Elena Reyes." Silence stretched between them. Elena's expression shifted from fear to suspicion. "You knew her?" He couldn't speak. Memories flooded back. The way Clara had laughed when she danced barefoot in the rain, the night they'd spent talking until dawn, and the abrupt way she had left without explanation. "Yes," he finally whispered. "I knew her." Elena nodded slowly, her eyes sharp now. "Then maybe you know who my father is, because she never told me, only that he was rich, important, but he never came back." William's mouth went dry. "She never told you his name?" "No, but she kept that photo. She taped it to the wall, said it was her lesson and her love. I didn't understand. Still don't." William's hands trembled slightly. The implications were too large, too fast. Could she really be? "Do you have anything else? A letter? A document? Anything?" Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "Why would you care?" He stepped forward gently. "Because I might be your father." Eleanor stood frozen, her thin shoulders tense beneath her threadbare sweater. For a second, the street around them disappeared, swallowed by the silence that fell between her and William. Her face gave away nothing, but her eyes, those sharp, defiant eyes, flickered with something that could only be described as dread. "No," she said softly, almost to herself. "You're lying." William shook his head. "I'm not. I didn't know. Clara never told me. If she had, then why did she cry every night when she thought I was asleep?" Eleanor's voice cut like glass. "Why did she say he forgot us?" under her breath, over and over, like a prayer that never worked. William stepped back as if struck. He opened his mouth, closed it. There were no words for that. Nothing to undo what had already been broken. Eleanor turned away and knelt beside her shelter, tucking the sack of bread beneath a pile of clothes. "Go home. I don't want your pity." "I'm not here out of pity," he said quietly. "I'm here because I think I have a daughter." Eleanor didn't respond. She pulled a small tin can from behind a broken crate and lit a match, trying to warm her fingers. "Tell me about her," William asked. "Please." There was a long pause. Then, with her back still to him, Elena spoke. She was kind. Even when she was sick, she made our place smell like cinnamon when she could. She'd hum old songs from her country. She said love doesn't always fix things, but it can hold them together when they break. William lowered himself onto a damp wooden crate across from her. His expensive coat brushed against the grime without a second thought. She sounds like someone who deserved better. From me. From the world. Eleanor finally turned to look at him. Her face was pale but fierce. "She did," he nodded. "Do you have any proof? Birth certificate, papers, anything?" "She burned most of her past when she got sick," Elena murmured. "Said it was safer that way. But there's one thing." She rummaged through a tin box and pulled out a faded envelope. "She never let me open this. It was sealed with red wax. She said it was for a time when I was ready." William reached out slowly. "May I?" She held it for a moment longer, then handed it over. He broke the seal with trembling fingers. Inside was a single sheet of paper, Clara's handwriting unmistakable. "Eleanor, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And he found you." William's breath caught. His hands shook as he read on. "I never told him. I was afraid. But you deserve to know the truth. Your father is William Langston." He looked up, his eyes wet. Eleanor stared back, unreadable. "I didn't ask for this," she whispered. "I just wanted a piece of bread." William stared at the letter in his hands. The ink blurred slightly from where his thumb pressed against it. It was real. Clara's words, Clara's hand, her unmistakable style of writing. He read it again, searching for something, anything that might change the truth now sitting heavy on his chest. But the words were clear, final, and written with aching intention. Eleanor watched him from across the fire, arms wrapped tightly around her knees. The disbelief in her expression had not faded. "So now what?" she asked. "You show up, call me your daughter, and everything magically changes." William shook his head slowly. "I don't expect forgiveness, or magic. But I can't walk away now. Not from you." "I'm not a project," she snapped. "I don't need rescuing like I'm some article in one of your donation campaigns." "I know," he said, his voice gentle. "But I am your father. That doesn't change whether you hate me or not, whether you believe I abandoned you or not." Elena's lips tightened. "You did abandon me. Even if you didn't know, you left her. You left her alone when she needed someone the most." His eyes closed briefly, the weight of her words pressing down like iron. "I was a different man then, cold, hungry for power. Clara knew that. Maybe that's why she never told me." "She didn't trust you," Elena said bluntly. He nodded. "I wouldn't have trusted me either." The fire crackled between them. In the distance, a dog barked and the city began to stir. "I want to help," he said after a long silence. "Not out of guilt, out of responsibility, out of love, if you'll let it grow." "Love?" Her voice cracked. "You don't get to say that. Not after 14 years of nothing." He looked at her, really looked at her, skin too pale for her age, clothes threadbare, a defiance carved into her like a survival mechanism. "Then let me start by showing you, not saying it. Let me earn the right to one day call you that. My daughter." She turned away, her body tight with emotion. "And what? You bring me to your mansion? Parade me around like some discovery?" "No," he said. "If I bring you anywhere, it's because you want to go. And not as a guest, as family." Her breath hitched. She didn't respond. "I'll come back tomorrow," he said, rising. "Same time, if you want me to." She didn't nod, didn't shake her head either. As he walked away, each step heavier than the last, Eleanor looked down at the letter again. Her mother's words, clear, certain, final. Her hands trembled slightly as she folded it and tucked it into her pocket. Behind her, the fire flickered low. Morning had come. But something far more dangerous than light had arrived. Hope. That night, Elena didn't sleep. She lay curled in the corner of her shelter, eyes fixed on the flickering shadows cast by the dying embers of her fire. The letter rested beside her, folded neatly under the only pillow she had, a rolled-up sweater that still faintly smelled of her mother. Her thoughts spun like a carousel she couldn't step off. William Langston, the man whose name was plastered on half the buildings in the city. The man she'd scrubbed floors for without knowing he might know that he was her father. And now he wanted to come back. A part of her wanted to slam the door in his face, to scream all the things she'd wanted to say to an absent father. Another part, quieter, more dangerous, wanted to believe he was sincere. That maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone in the world after all. The next morning she sat at the edge of the alley, waiting. She didn't know why. Curiosity maybe, or weakness, or a desperate need to prove him a liar. But when he returned, he wasn't alone. A sleek black car rolled to a gentle stop behind him. From the back seat, a woman stepped out, tall, graceful, with sharp eyes and an air of authority that didn't match her warm smile. "Elena," William said carefully, "this is Evelyn. She's my fiancée." Evelyn stepped forward, her heels somehow graceful even on the cracked pavement. "I've heard a lot about you," she said, extending a hand. Eleanor didn't move. Her gaze shifted from William to Evelyn and back again. "You brought someone?" William nodded. "I wanted her to meet you. I thought—" "You thought wrong." Elena stood, hands clenched. "You don't get to introduce me like a secret you just remembered. I'm not here to impress your fiancé." Evelyn held up a hand gently. I understand how this must feel. No, Elena snapped. You don't. You never will. William stepped forward. Elena, please. I didn't mean to overwhelm you. I thought maybe you'd want to see that there are people who care about you, who want to be in your life. Eleanor's eyes burned. I had someone, and you weren't there. She died holding on to nothing but a picture of a man who never came back. William swallowed hard. I'm here now. A gust of wind rustled the edges of her tarp roof. Elena looked away. I can't do this, she whispered. Not yet. William nodded slowly. I'll wait. As he turned to go, Evelyn gave Elena a small envelope. This is just for you, no pressure. Open it when you want. They left. Elena stood alone in the alley, envelope trembling in her hands. She opened it. Inside was a note. If you're willing, come to 184 Willow Drive. There's a room waiting, no expectations. And beneath it, a photo of Clara holding a baby next to William. A photo Eleanor had never seen. Eleanor's fingers trembled as she traced the edges of the photograph. It was worn, the corners slightly curled, as if someone had held it often but kept it hidden away for years. In it, her mother looked radiant, her smile soft and full of light. She cradled a tiny baby wrapped in a pale blue blanket, and beside her stood William, much younger, unguarded, with a rare tenderness in his expression as he gazed down at them both. Elena clutched the picture to her chest. 1,000 questions thundered through her mind. Had Clara kept this all along? Why had she hidden it? Why hadn't she shown it to Elena before her death? By late afternoon, Elena found herself walking, the envelope from Evelyn tucked into her coat. She didn't know what had pulled her out of the alley. Curiosity, anger, the aching desire to find a place that might feel like hers. Whatever it was, it led her to 184 Willow Drive. It wasn't a mansion. That surprised her. It was a modest, ivy-covered townhouse on the edge of a quiet neighborhood. Not grand, not cold, almost human. She hesitated at the gate, heart pounding. From inside, Evelyn spotted her and stepped onto the porch, her movements calm and deliberate. She said nothing, just nodded and opened the door wider. Inside, the house smelled like cinnamon and cedar. Elena entered cautiously, every instinct telling her to bolt. But something kept her rooted. Maybe it was the framed pictures on the hallway wall, or the way the light poured through the old windows, bathing the space in a gentle gold. I grew up in a place like this, Evelyn said, breaking the silence. I thought you might like something simple, honest. Elena looked around. It's warm. There's a room upstairs, Evelyn said. It's yours if you want it. No one will make you stay. Eleanor climbed the stairs slowly. The room was small, with pale yellow curtains and a twin bed covered in a hand-stitched quilt. There were books on a shelf and a little desk with colored pencils in a jar. On the desk was another letter. Eleanor, I didn't know how to say any of this to your face. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I will do whatever it takes to earn your trust. This room is yours. Always. William. She sat on the bed, unsure whether to cry or scream. The anger she'd carried for so long sat heavy in her chest, but alongside it now was confusion. Why was he doing this? Guilt, obligation, or something more dangerous? Love. She lay back and stared at the ceiling. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. Love doesn't always fix things, but it can hold them together when they break. And for the first time in a long time, Elena let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't broken beyond repair. The days that followed passed in slow, delicate steps. Elena didn't leave the house, but she didn't run either. She explored each room with quiet caution, like a ghost testing the edges of the world she'd been forgotten by. William didn't push. He didn't even appear often. Evelyn handled most interactions, short meals, gentle conversations, small gestures like leaving fresh towels or a notebook on her desk. The silence between them all was thick, but not cruel. It was a silence of waiting. On the third day, Eleanor found herself in the backyard, sitting beneath a blooming magnolia tree. The breeze was soft, the petals drifting like confetti. She was sketching. Shapes at first, then faces, her mother's, a younger version of herself. She'd always drawn in secret, but now the stillness of the house gave her space. She didn't hear William approach until he was standing a few feet away, holding 2 mugs of tea. He set one on the bench beside her without saying a word. "You've been quiet," she said after a moment. "I thought it best," he replied. "I didn't want to crowd you." She looked at him carefully. "You used to smile like that." He blinked. "Like what?" "In the photo, you had this open look, like you believed in something, in someone." William looked down at his hands. "I think I lost that a long time ago." "And now?" He exhaled slowly. "Now I'm trying to remember what it felt like." They sat in silence for a few moments, sipping tea. "I don't know how to do this," Elena admitted. "I've never had this." She gestured vaguely at the house, the calm, the uncertain peace. "You don't have to know," William said gently. "We can figure it out, one step at a time." She hesitated, then asked, "Why didn't you ever come looking?" He swallowed. "I didn't know. Not truly. Clara vanished. No letters. No calls. I thought she left because she didn't want anything to do with me." "She didn't," Eleanor said, "but not for the reason you think." She was scared. William looked at her, eyes searching. "Of me? Of what you'd choose? Of being a secret you'd bury to protect your world?" William nodded slowly. "She wasn't wrong. Back then, I would have chosen ambition. I did. More than once." Elena turned to him, her voice low. "Then why are you choosing me now?" He looked her in the eyes, and there was no hesitation in his answer. "Because for the first time in my life, I understand what matters. And it's not power or legacy or wealth. It's you. It's the daughter I never got to hold. It's the time we still have." The wind rustled the branches above them. Elena didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. She simply nodded. Once. A signal, a beginning, a crack in the wall she'd built for years. That evening, as the golden light of dusk spilled through the kitchen windows, Elena wandered into the heart of the house, the one place she'd carefully avoided. The kitchen was warm, filled with the scent of fresh herbs and something baking. Evelyn stood at the counter, sleeves rolled up, hands dusted with flour. Elena paused in the doorway. "You cook?" Evelyn turned, smiling. "When I'm nervous." Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "Are you nervous now?" "A little," Evelyn admitted. "I've never tried to be a stepmother before. Figured pie might help." There was a long beat of silence. Then Elena stepped closer. "What kind of pie?" "Apple, with cinnamon and cardamom. Your mother's recipe, actually." Elena blinked. "How do you know her recipe?" "William found an old journal of hers. It had recipes, poems, even notes about you." Eleanor sat down slowly at the kitchen island. "She never let me read her journals." "She was saving it for you," Evelyn said, "for when you were ready." Eleanor watched as Evelyn moved through the kitchen with quiet efficiency. There was something oddly soothing about her presence. Not maternal exactly, but steady. "You don't have to be anything," Eleanor said suddenly. "I'm not looking for a mother." Evelyn paused, then nodded. "Good, I'm not trying to be one, just someone in your corner." Eleanor looked down at her hands. "That's new." They shared the pie in silence, the flavor surprisingly familiar. It tasted like mornings with her mother, those rare, precious days when Clara had enough ingredients to bake something, even if it meant skipping dinner later. Afterward, Evelyn slid a leather-bound journal across the table. "It's yours." Elena opened it carefully. Inside were recipes in Clara's handwriting, along with pages of thoughts, lists, tiny sketches, and letters never sent. Her heart twisted at the sight of it all. "She missed you every day," Elena whispered, "even when she didn't say it." "I believe that," Evelyn said softly. Later, as she lay in bed, Elena read deeper into the journal. One entry, dated 12 years ago, stood out. He doesn't know. He may never know. But she is strong. Stronger than I ever was. Maybe one day he'll see her. And maybe he'll understand what he lost. The words hit her like a wave. She closed the journal and stared at the ceiling, the ache in her chest heavy, but no longer hollow. Someone had seen her, even if only in ink and memory. And now someone else was trying to. For the first time in years, she fell asleep without fear of waking up alone. But miles away, someone else had seen the newspaper story about William Langston's missing daughter being found. And he wasn't happy about it. In a dimly lit apartment across the city, a man sat hunched over a kitchen table cluttered with newspapers, old photographs, and a glass of cheap whiskey. The television droned in the background, but his eyes were fixed on the article in his hands. Langston's surprise. Billionaire reunites with long-lost daughter. He crushed the paper in his fist, his knuckles white with fury. She was supposed to disappear, he muttered. His name was Marcus Hale. Years ago, he'd been Clara's landlord, then her friend, then the man she'd reluctantly relied on when her illness grew worse. He had offered food, medicine, protection, but it had come with strings. Silent, invisible ropes that wrapped tighter the weaker Clara became. He had always known there was something about Elena, something that would bring trouble. And now, that trouble had a name. William Langston. He slammed the glass down. "No more secrets," he growled. "She belongs to me, not him." Back at Willow Drive, Eleanor was sitting on the front steps watching the sun rise when William joined her. He handed her a steaming mug of tea, just the way she liked it now. No sugar, just a slice of lemon. "You couldn't sleep either?" he asked. "Too many thoughts," she said. "Memories." "Good ones or bad?" "Both." They sat in silence for a while. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if she had told you?" she asked quietly. "Every day since I saw that photo," William replied. "I wonder what would have been different." "Maybe everything," he said, "or maybe nothing. But we have now. That's something." Just then, Evelyn stepped onto the porch, her phone in her hand, her face pale. "There's a man," she said carefully. "He's been trying to contact our offices, says he knew Clara, says he's concerned about Elena." William frowned. "Did he give a name?" "Marcus Hale." Elena's face drained of color. Her mug slipped from her hand, shattering on the steps. "No," she whispered. "No, he can't find me." William moved instantly to her side. "Who is he?" She shook her head, breathing fast. "He lived near us. He helped when Mum got sick, but then he changed. He said I owed him. He made me feel like I was trapped." Evelyn knelt beside her. "You're not alone anymore. He can't hurt you." But Eleanor's hands wouldn't stop shaking. "He knows I'm alive. He'll come." William stood, his voice firm. "Then let him. He won't get anywhere near you." He placed a call to his security team immediately. The calm of the past few days evaporated like smoke. Inside the house, the warmth remained. But now it was laced with a tension no one could ignore. Because Marcus was already watching, and he had no intention of letting go of the girl he considered his leverage. That night, the soft hum of the city faded behind newly installed security gates, and guards posted discreetly around the perimeter of Willow Drive. Elena stood by her bedroom window, watching the silhouettes move below, her reflection blending with the darkness outside. She felt safe, but she also felt watched. William knocked lightly before entering her room. He didn't speak at first, just stood with a small box in his hand. "I had the legal team expedite everything," he said gently. "Your birth certificate, Clara's letters, the DNA confirmation, it's all official now." Eleanor took the box hesitantly and opened it. Inside was a silver locket, simple, elegant, with her initials engraved on the back. "Elena Reyes Langston," he said softly. "If you want it to be." She turned the locket over in her palm, her throat tight. "It's beautiful." "There's a picture inside," he added. "One of Clara, and one we took today." Elena clicked it open. On one side, her mother's warm smile gazed back. On the other, a photo Evelyn had taken earlier in the garden, Elena and William sitting on the bench beneath the magnolia, her sketchbook in her lap, his arm resting gently behind her. The image looked natural, real. "I want you to know," William said, no one has a claim to you anymore. You don't owe Marcus anything." Eleanor nodded slowly. "But he won't stop." "Let him come," William said. "He'll see what it means to face someone who doesn't run anymore." But just as they turned to leave the room, Evelyn called from downstairs. Her voice was calm but edged with tension. "William, Elena, you should come see this." They hurried down. Evelyn stood by the front door holding an envelope, handwritten, no stamp. "It was slid under the gate," she said. William opened it. Inside was a short note, scrawled in hurried pen. "You think money can protect her. She's mine. She remembers what she promised. You're too late." Elena's hands clenched. "I never promised him anything." William's jaw tightened. "This is a threat." Elena stared at the note, her pulse rising. "He won't stop. I know him. He'll find another way in." Evelyn stepped forward, her voice cool. "Then we find a way to stop him first." For the first time, Elena saw something fierce in Evelyn's eyes, something that reminded her of her mother. Protective, unflinching. They stood in the foyer, the air thick with fear and fury. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the hedges. And somewhere nearby, hidden in the shadows, Marcus watched through a pair of binoculars, a twisted smile playing on his lips. He had no intention of backing down. Not now. Not ever. The next morning brought a sharp, biting cold. Elena sat curled in a chair by the fireplace, her sketchbook resting on her knees but untouched. The locket around her neck felt heavier than before, as if it now carried not just memories, but warnings. William entered quietly, carrying a thick folder. "I spoke to the police this morning," he said, taking the seat across from her. "They're aware of Marcus Hale. Apparently there are a few past complaints, harassment, intimidation, but nothing ever stuck." Elena didn't look up, because he knew how to hide, how to act helpful until he wasn't. William opened the folder. "I had our investigators dig deeper. Turns out Marcus has a pattern. He attaches himself to vulnerable women, offers help, then isolates them, controls them." "That's what he did to Mom," she whispered. "When she got sick, he made her think we couldn't survive without him." William's voice tightened. "He's a predator, and he's been watching you for far too long." Eleanor finally looked up. "So what do we do?" "We prepare," he said. "I've arranged a full protection detail. The house is under 24-hour surveillance. No one gets in without clearance." "But he doesn't need the front door," she said, her voice low. "He knows how to find cracks. People." "Secrets," William nodded grimly. "That's why I'm not just playing defense." He slid another envelope across the table. "This is a restraining order, already in place, but I want to do more. I want to go public." Elena froze. "Public?" "A press conference, with you by my side. The world will know who you are, that you're part of this family now. If he comes after you again, he won't just be facing us. He'll be facing everyone." Eleanor stared at the envelope, conflicted. "That means everyone will know, about Mom, about me." "I know it's a risk," William said, "but it's also power. Marcus thrives in the shadows. This pulls him into the light." Evelyn entered with a tablet. "The media's already swirling. We might as well own the story before he does." Elena's fingers traced the locket. "And if I speak, people might listen?" "They will," William said, "because you have something to say." She didn't answer immediately, but then she stood, her voice trembling. "Then let's do it. Let's make sure he knows I'm not hiding anymore." Later that afternoon, the Langston PR team gathered in the living room. Lights, cameras, a podium. And when Elena stepped up beside William, her heart pounded. But her voice, when she spoke, was clear. "My name is Elena Reyes Langston. I was lost once, not anymore. Across the city, Marcus watched the broadcast on a cracked screen. His smile faded. She wasn't his ghost anymore. She was fire. The fallout was immediate. The press devoured the story. Billionaire discovers daughter living in poverty. Heir found in shadows of the city. Reunion shakes legacy of Langston Empire. But beneath the glossy headlines was a much quieter storm. Eleanor watched from behind the thick glass of the sunroom, the garden stretching out before her like a painting she still didn't feel part of. Her phone buzzed non-stop. Reporters, classmates she never had, strangers offering support or suspicion. She ignored most of them, until one message made her freeze. "You think this changes anything? You still belong to me." She dropped the phone. Evelyn entered moments later and saw her pale face. "What happened?" Eleanor pointed at the screen. Evelyn picked it up and read silently. Then, with a calm fury, she marched out of the room. Elena followed her down the hall, where William was speaking with his head of security. "He texted her," Evelyn said, handing over the phone. William's face hardened. "How did he get this number?" "Does it matter?" Eleanor said. "He's still out there, still watching." William turned to his security chief. "Find him. I want eyes on Marcus Hale before nightfall." The man nodded and left immediately. Later, William and Elena sat in the study. Old records and journals from Clara's life spread between them. "Do you think he ever really cared about her?" Elena asked quietly. "I think he wanted to own her," William replied. "That's not love. That's control." Elena nodded slowly. "She told me once that people sometimes mistake attention for affection, that sometimes being noticed feels like safety, but it's not." She was right. Elena looked up. "I'm scared." William leaned forward, his eyes steady. "That's okay. Fear keeps us sharp, but it doesn't control us. Not anymore." That night, security found Marcus. He'd rented a room in a crumbling motel outside the city. Surveillance footage showed him coming and going with caution, often carrying packages and speaking to no one. When the team moved in to detain him, he was gone. Room empty, window open, but he'd left something behind. Pinned to the door was a single photograph. Elena, sitting on the bench in the garden. The timestamp was from just 2 days ago. He had been closer than they ever imagined. Back at Willow Drive, William reinforced every wall, every gate, every exit. But Elena knew what Marcus really wanted wasn't to break in. It was to make her feel trapped again, and that was something no wall could stop. That night, she sat awake, sketching Marcus's face from memory, not to remember him, but to defeat him. The sketch was haunting. Elena stared at the page, the sharp angles of Marcus's face captured in grim detail, his narrowed eyes, the smug curl of his mouth, the slight crook of his nose where Clara had once broken it in a fight he denied ever happened. She pinned the drawing above her desk, not as a keepsake but as a reminder, a target. Downstairs, William paced the length of the study, speaking in a low, firm voice on a secure line. "No more mistakes. I want every camera checked, every angle monitored. If he breathes near this property again, I want to know before he does." Eleanor heard the urgency in his voice and felt a strange shift inside her. He wasn't doing this out of image management anymore. He was afraid. For her. Evelyn found her in the hallway, dressed in jeans and a hoodie, clutching her backpack. "You going somewhere?" Eleanor nodded. "The alley, where I used to live. I need to see it." Evelyn frowned. "Why?" "Because that's where I was born. Not just into the world, but into the fight. And I think there's something there Marcus wants, or something he left." 15 minutes later, Eleanor, William, Evelyn, and 2 guards were standing in the narrow alley, surrounded by shadows and memory. The tarp shelter still stood, though weathered now and partially collapsed. Eleanor walked through it slowly, lifting a broken crate, brushing aside layers of old blankets. "What are we looking for?" William asked gently. "I don't know, but I feel like she left something behind. My mom." Behind a stack of bricks, Elena pulled free a rusted cookie tin. Inside were scraps of paper, folded and worn. One of them was a receipt, with Marcus Hale's name printed at the bottom. It was for a pharmacy prescription, 3 months before Clara died. Elena's eyes narrowed. She always said the medicine stopped working. William stepped beside her. You think he gave her something else? I think he made her stop taking what she needed, to keep her weak, dependent. Evelyn reached in and found another folded sheet. This one a letter. It was never sent. To whoever finds this, if he comes for her, protect her. She is not his to own. She is light, and he is shadow. Elena felt her knees give slightly. She sank to the ground, holding the note to her chest. She knew, she whispered. She knew he'd come after me. William crouched beside her, placing a hand on her back. Then we won't let him win. In the distance, an engine revved. One of the guards turned sharply. Sir, someone's watching from the corner. But by the time they rushed to the end of the alley, the car was gone, and on the wall, freshly spray-painted in red, she was mine first. Back at Willow Drive, silence hung thick in the air. The security team was in overdrive, new patrols added, drones deployed, and infrared scans of the property perimeter ordered every half hour. But none of it made Elena feel safe. She stood in her room, the red paint from the alley still vivid in her mind. She was mine first. The words didn't just threaten her. They tried to erase her, reduce her to property, to history. William entered quietly, holding the receipt and the unsent letter they'd recovered. The pharmacy confirmed it. The prescription was altered. It was supposed to be a stabilizer for Clara's condition, but someone switched it with a sedative. Marcus, Elena whispered. William nodded grimly. He kept her dependent, weak, and now he wants you back under that same grip. But I'm not her, Elena said. Her voice cracked, but didn't falter. I won't be controlled. That evening, Evelyn called in a friend, Detective Lila Monroe, an off-duty investigator with a reputation for working around the system when the system failed. She was sharp-eyed, direct, and entirely unimpressed by wealth. He's escalating, she said, reviewing the footage of the alley and the photo left behind. Stalkers like Marcus thrive on familiarity. He's not just angry, he's obsessed with reclaiming control. Then what's his next move? William asked. Something intimate. Something designed to shake her, Lila replied, glancing at Elena. He'll come for a memory, a weakness. Later that night, Eleanor found herself drawn to Clara's journal again. She flipped through pages filled with poetry, recipes and sketches, until she landed on a drawing of a lighthouse. It was rough but detailed, and beneath it, a single line. Where the waves break, I found my breath. Eleanor ran downstairs, journal in hand. This place, do you know it? William stared at the sketch. That's Langston Point, my family's old summer home. I haven't been there in 20 years. Evelyn's face tightened. Could he be there? He knows our history, Elena said. And Mom said it was her favorite place, the only one she felt free. If Marcus is trying to take that too. They didn't wait. By midnight, they were on the road, 2 SUVs carving through the darkness, headlights cutting across fields and cliffs. Langston Point emerged from the fog like something out of a dream, an old stone house perched on a cliff, the sea crashing below. As they approached the front steps, one of the guards called out, "Sir, there's a candle lit in the upstairs window." William froze. No one should be here. Inside, everything was still. Then, from upstairs, the unmistakable creak of a floorboard. Eleanor grabbed William's arm. Her voice was barely a breath. He's here. The air inside Langston Point was dense with salt and silence. Every step echoed down the old wooden hallways, the floor beneath their feet groaning like it remembered the weight of secrets long buried. William moved ahead first, flanked by security. Evelyn stayed close behind Elena, one hand resting protectively at her back. The candle flickered at the top of the stairs, its flame casting long shadows against the peeling wallpaper. Eleanor's heart thudded painfully, her mind flashing with images, her mother humming lullabies, her hand clutching a warm mug by a stormy window, a laughter that echoed off these very walls. But those memories were shattered by the sound of a slow, deliberate clap. From the dark end of the hallway, Marcus emerged. He looked older, thinner, his face more angular, but the same cold intensity burned in his eyes. He smiled, not kindly. Well, well, the lost girl finds her throne. "Stay where you are," one of the guards barked, stepping forward with a weapon drawn. Marcus raised both hands mockingly. "Relax, I'm unarmed. I came to talk." William's jaw clenched. "You came to trespass, to threaten, to poison her memories." "I came," Marcus said, locking eyes with Eleanor, "because she came. She brought her mother here once, long before you ever bothered to care." "You manipulated her," Eleanor spat. "You kept her sick." "I saved her," he hissed. "When everyone else abandoned her? When you did?" William stepped forward, seething. "You fed on her vulnerability. That's not salvation. That's control." Marcus's smile vanished. "You think you can replace me? Erase me from her story?" He turned to Elena. "You don't know what he is, what he's done." "I know enough," she said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her throat. "And I'm not yours. I never was." Marcus's face twisted with rage. "She made promises. She asked you for help," Elena interrupted, "not chains." He took a step forward, and the guards immediately raised their weapons. Evelyn stepped in front of Elena without hesitation. "Get out," she said coldly. "Now." Marcus hesitated. Then, slowly, he stepped back. But his eyes never left Eleanor. "This isn't over," he whispered. "You carry her face, her blood. You'll see. One day, you'll come back." "Never," Eleanor said. The guards moved in, cuffing him and leading him down the stairs. Outside, red and blue lights appeared in the distance, Detective Lila Monroe's doing. As Marcus was dragged away, Eleanor stood in the hallway, breathing heavily. Her hands shook, her chest ached, but she didn't move. William placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "It's over." She looked up at him. "No, it's just beginning." And down the hallway in the flickering candlelight, Clara's painting of the lighthouse still hung on the wall, steady, glowing. A beacon, a promise, and Eleanor was finally free to follow its light. The next morning, the sea outside Langston Point shimmered like glass beneath a pale sunrise. Inside the house, everything felt still, suspended in that fragile quiet that comes after the storm. Eleanor sat alone in the sunroom, wrapped in one of her mother's old shawls they'd found tucked in the attic. It smelled faintly of lavender and dust. She watched the waves roll in and out, her fingers absently tracing the embroidered threads. For the first time, she wasn't running, from hunger, from loneliness, from the past, but she wasn't entirely still either. William entered carrying a tray with 2 mugs and a small plate of warm biscuits. "I thought you might be hungry," he said gently. Elena looked at him and smiled faintly. "I think I am." They sat in silence for a while. Then she turned to him. "You were scared last night." "I was," he admitted, "terrified. For me." He looked at her, his expression softening. "For everything I never got to say. For what I almost lost before I even knew I had it." Elena's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. She'd cried enough. "You didn't run. That means something." He nodded slowly. "I'm learning." Later, they walked the grounds together. Evelyn had gone back to the city to coordinate legal matters. The house felt like it was slowly breathing again, less haunted now that Marcus was behind bars, awaiting a long list of charges. Eleanor paused beneath the massive oak tree that had once shaded her mother during the last summer they'd spent here. She could almost hear Clara's voice in the rustling leaves. "She brought me here when I was little," she said. "Said it was the only place she ever dreamed of staying forever." "She loved this place," William murmured. "She used to bring her journals up to the tower. Said the ocean helped her remember who she was before the world told her who to be." "I want to keep it," Elena said suddenly. "Not as a memory, but as a home." William looked at her, surprised. Then slowly he smiled. Then it's yours. Later that afternoon, a box arrived by courier. No name, just a return address from a storage facility downtown. Inside was an old video camera wrapped in cloth and a stack of labeled tapes. Elena frowned. This was hers. Together, they played the first tape. The screen flickered to life. Young Clara laughing, holding baby Elena, singing in a soft voice as she rocked her in a blanket. William watched, tears welling in his eyes. He reached forward, touching the screen. She kept everything, he whispered. Eleanor stared at her mother's face, the way her eyes sparkled. She was waiting, she said. All these years and for this. And suddenly the house didn't feel so big. It felt full. Over the following days, Langston Point transformed. What had once been a cold, echoing memory of the past slowly filled with warmth, laughter, and light. Eleanor took charge of unpacking the attic, each box a time capsule of her mother's life. Journals, photographs, small trinkets, even handwritten lullabies. Every discovery brought her closer to the woman she had lost and closer to the man she was just beginning to know. William stayed by her side for most of it, sometimes in silence, other times offering a memory. He'd point to a picture and say, "She wore that dress the day she beat me at chess." Or he'd laugh softly at a love note she once tucked in his jacket pocket, now brittle and faded with time. On the fourth night, Eleanor sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by photo albums. "She documented everything," she said in awe. "Even the hard moments." "That's how she was," William replied. "She believed the truth deserved to be remembered." They paused at a photo of Clara standing on the lighthouse balcony, wind tossing her hair, a rare look of serenity on her face. "She looks free," Eleanor murmured. "She was," William said quietly. "In that moment, she was." Eleanor turned the page and stopped. The next photo wasn't of Clara, but of herself, much younger, maybe 5. Sitting in the same garden where she'd found the photo of William weeks ago. Her eyes widened. "She brought me to the estate." William leaned in, startled. I didn't know. That's our garden. But I never saw her." There was a note scrawled on the back of the photo. "He'll never know I brought her here, but she deserved to see the world that should have been hers." Eleanor stared at the words. "She tried to show me, even if only for a moment." "She was brave," William said, in her own quiet way. Later, Evelyn returned, her arms full of papers. "The estate, the foundation, the transition, it's all set. Elena, you're officially co-owner of Langston Holdings' new charitable division, focused on youth in poverty." Elena blinked. "What?" "It was her idea," William said. "A place in your name, and hers." Evelyn smiled. "You'll get to lead it, shape it, turn your story into someone else's hope." Eleanor looked down at her hands, still stained faintly with ink and dust from the attic. "I don't even know how to begin." William placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You already have." That night she stood again on the lighthouse balcony. The sea roared below, stars scattered across the sky, and in the wind she could almost hear Clara's voice again. "You're more than my daughter, you're my legacy." Elena closed her eyes. She finally believed it. The following week brought more change than Elena had expected. The press frenzy had calmed, but the real work was just beginning. At headquarters in the city, the Langston Foundation for Youth had launched quietly, but with purpose. Elena was given an office, a small team, and full authority to decide the mission. But what she didn't expect was how overwhelming it would feel. The second morning she sat at her desk, staring at an empty notepad. Her name, Elena Reyes Langston, was etched on the plaque outside the door. It felt surreal, almost like wearing someone else's shoes. She didn't hear the knock at first. Evelyn stepped in, holding a warm coffee and a folder. "You okay?" Elena nodded vaguely. "I just don't know where to begin." Evelyn smiled. "That's normal. Most people start with numbers, budgets, staff, but I think you'll start with names." She handed over the folder. Inside were case files, young people currently living in shelters or on the streets. Each file had a photo, a short bio, a note on their situation. Elena read the first one. A girl named Ruby, age 15, left home due to abuse. Living behind a church, attending school in secret, Elena's eyes stung. "That was me," she whispered. "I know," Evelyn said softly. "That's why you'll know exactly what to do." By the end of the week, Elena had met with 6 teens, not as a charity figurehead, but as someone who had walked through the same fire. She listened, she took notes. She returned to the team with demands: safe beds, tutoring access, therapy options, warm meals without judgment. She didn't want to save them. She wanted to empower them. One afternoon, while visiting a temporary shelter the foundation had begun funding, she spotted a familiar face in the crowd. Ruby. The girl looked up, wary. Eleanor approached slowly, crouching down to her level. "I used to hide behind a dumpster near a mansion," she said softly, "just to get a piece of bread." Ruby blinked. "What happened?" Eleanor smiled gently. "Someone finally saw me." Ruby stared. "You're her, the girl from the news." "I'm you," Eleanor replied. "And you're not invisible anymore." Back at Langston Point, William watched the televised segment with pride. Eleanor on screen, speaking not about wealth, but about worth, about survival, about creating spaces that didn't shame those who were struggling. "She's becoming something more than I ever imagined," he said aloud. Evelyn, seated beside him, replied, "She always was. You just didn't see it yet." And in her new office, beneath a framed photo of Clara and baby Eleanor, a quote was painted across the wall in her own handwriting. "You can grow flowers from ruins, if you dare to plant." Eleanor stood beneath those words, no longer unsure. She was ready to plant. The foundation quickly became more than just a headline. It became a movement. Donations poured in, not because of William Langston's name, but because of Eleanor's story. People connected with her, not as a billionaire's daughter, but as a survivor who had turned pain into purpose. She insisted on being in the field, not just in boardrooms or behind microphones, but in kitchens, schools, and shelters. She wanted to look people in the eye, to show them she hadn't forgotten where she came from. One day she walked into a temporary housing unit the foundation had just opened in Eastside. She greeted staff, helped unload boxes, even served lunch. Then she noticed a quiet boy sitting in the corner, tracing patterns on his tray with a plastic fork. She crouched beside him. "Hey, what's your name?" He glanced up. "Miguel." "How old are you?" 10. Elena offered a small smile. "I was your age when I first learned how to sew up my own shoes." Miguel blinked, confused. "Why?" "Because they were the only pair I had," she said simply. He stared at her. "But you're rich now." "I wasn't then," she replied, "and that part of me is still here." "She's what helps me help you." He nodded slowly. "You think I can be rich someday?" Eleanor touched his shoulder. "I think you can be whatever you decide to be, starting right now." Back at Langston Point that night, William was waiting on the porch as she returned. He handed her a mug of tea. "You're changing lives," he said. "So are you," she replied. "You're letting go of old habits, letting love in." He chuckled. "Not easy for a man like me." "It wasn't easy for a girl like me either," she said, "but we're learning. Together." They sat in silence as waves crashed in the distance. Elena pulled out her mother's journal, flipping to the final entry, one she hadn't dared read before. "If Elena finds this, I hope she's not bitter. I hope she knows I tried, that I loved her in every moment, even the broken ones. I hope she finds her father. I hope he becomes the man I once believed he could be." William reached for the book, reading the words slowly. His eyes filled. "She still had faith in me." "She saw something in you," Elena said, "even when you couldn't." He looked at her, voice cracking. "And you saved me from who I was." She shook her head. "No, you saved yourself. I just reminded you what was worth saving." In that moment, no mansion, no title, no legacy mattered. Only the flicker of peace between a father and the daughter he never knew he needed. Only the promise that healing, real healing, was possible, even after everything. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor to Langston Point. As the wind shifted off the sea and the gulls circled lazily above, Evelyn pulled into the gravel driveway with an envelope in hand and a troubled look on her face. Elena and William met her on the front porch. "It came through legal channels," Evelyn said. "From Marcus Hale's attorney." Elena tensed. "What does he want now?" Evelyn handed her the envelope, sealed with a simple stamp. "He's requesting a meeting in prison." William stepped forward. "Absolutely not. He's trying to manipulate her again." But Elena was already reading the letter. It wasn't long. Just a few short lines written in a surprisingly steady hand. "I won't live much longer. There's something you need to know. Not about me. About your mother. And about you." Eleanor's breath caught. "He's dying." Evelyn nodded slowly. "Cancer, terminal. The system's allowing one final visitor before he's moved to hospice." William looked at her, protective but cautious. "You don't owe him anything." "I know," she said quietly. "But I need to know if he's lying. If there's more to what happened. More to Mom's story." An hour later, Eleanor sat alone in a sterile visitor's room at the correctional center. Across from her, Marcus looked like a shadow of the man who once haunted her dreams. His cheeks were sunken, his hair grayer, eyes less sharp but still watchful. "I didn't think you'd come," he said. "I'm not here for you," Eleanor replied coldly. "I'm here for her." He nodded slowly. "Fair enough. What do you want to say?" Marcus coughed, a rasping sound. "Clara didn't just run from William, she ran from someone else, someone in Langston's company. Someone who threatened her after she refused to sign a non-disclosure agreement about William's involvement in a project gone wrong." Elena blinked. "What kind of project?" "Land acquisition. South Point. Whole families displaced. William didn't know all the details, but someone forged his signature. Clara tried to expose it. They shut her down." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I was angry at the wrong man. I thought she chose him over me. But she was protecting you." Eleanor stood slowly. She always was. He didn't reach for her, didn't ask for forgiveness, just watched her with hollow eyes as she left. Back at Langston Point, she relayed everything to William. He sat in stunned silence, then picked up his phone. "Get me the archives for South Point now." It wasn't over, not yet. Because if Clara had died trying to protect a truth buried by power, then Elena was ready to finish what her mother started. And this time, she wouldn't be cleaning marble floors. She'd be tearing down walls. The documents arrived the next morning, thick folders marked with legal stamps and redacted sections, all from a land acquisition deal nearly 15 years prior. William spread them out across the dining table at Langston Point, his eyes scanning with growing disbelief. Elena sat beside him, reading along. "There," she pointed. "That's her name. Clara Reyes. She signed a statement, but look at the handwriting. That's not hers." William nodded grimly. "Forged. And right there, Langston Development Corp. That's not even one of my entities. It was a shell company, hidden under a former executive I fired years ago." Evelyn, pacing nearby, crossed her arms. "Let me guess. George Avery?" William's eyes met hers sharply. "You think he was behind this?" Evelyn nodded. "He handled South Point back then. Ruthless, quiet, and ambitious." Elena clenched her fists. "That land belonged to dozens of families. Mom tried to stop it. They silenced her. And I think they meant to do worse." William stood, a fire in his eyes she hadn't seen before. "Then we're going to expose it. All of it." They took the files to Lila Monroe, the off-duty detective who'd helped them with Marcus. She scanned the evidence carefully, lips pursed. "This is deep. If Avery's still tied to any Langston subsidiary, you'll be fighting both legally and politically." Elena didn't flinch. "Good. Let them come." Lila nodded. I'll help, but you'll need more than truth. You'll need visibility. Elena knew what that meant. Another press appearance, another round of judgment, exposure, risk. But this time it wasn't about her story. It was about her mother's truth. At the next press conference, Elena stood before a wall of microphones. The Langston crest loomed behind her, but she didn't wear a suit or pearls. She wore her mother's shawl, lavender and soft, wrapped tightly around her shoulders. She took a deep breath. Cameras clicked. My name is Elena Reyes Langston, she said, voice steady. And I'm here to speak not as an heir but as a witness. 15 years ago, Clara Reyes, my mother, was silenced by a corporate cover-up tied to South Point evictions. Her name was forged, her warnings ignored. She paid the price with her peace, her health, and eventually her life. A hush fell over the room. Elena continued. We have evidence that a former executive, George Avery, used a front company to push illegal acquisitions under the Langston name. My father never knew, but now that we do, we are taking every step necessary to correct it. Reporters shouted questions. Elena raised her hand. This isn't just about justice for Clara. It's about restoring every home that was taken, every voice that was ignored, and ensuring it never happens again. William stepped beside her. We will fund independent investigations, return what was taken, and we will not stop until every shadow is gone. That night, as they watched the news coverage together, Elena whispered, she'd be proud. William wrapped an arm around her shoulders. She'd be in awe. The following days unfolded like a wave crashing against a long, silent shore. Public reaction to Elena's announcement was swift and passionate. Survivors from South Point came forward with their own stories, families displaced, homes demolished, promises broken. Elena insisted on meeting them all. She sat with them, listened to their pain, took notes in her mother's journal, and promised transparency. One woman, Lydia Moreno, clasped Elena's hands with trembling fingers. Your mother came to my house, told me not to sign, said someone was lying to us. The next day, she was gone. Elena's eyes stung with tears. She tried to protect you. I won't let her sacrifice be buried. William moved quickly. His legal team opened old records, froze Avery's assets, and launched a sweeping internal audit of Langston's holdings. Evelyn coordinated a relief fund, offering reparations to South Point families without delay or red tape. But George Avery didn't disappear quietly. 3 days later, he released a statement denying any wrongdoing. Ms. Reyes Langston is clearly using emotion to fuel baseless accusations. No documents prove intentional harm. Her father is leveraging this for public redemption. Elena's rage boiled over. He's still playing games. We'll respond, William said, but not with words, with proof. That night, Evelyn brought in a digital forensics expert. They scanned Clara's original files, the ones she'd saved secretly in the old video camera's memory card. One file stood out, an audio recording, dated 2 weeks before her disappearance from South Point. They played it. Clara's voice came through, breathless and urgent. George, you can't keep hiding this. You're forging names. They'll come after you. A man's voice, calm and cold. You sign the silence, Clara, or you disappear like the rest. The room went still. William stepped back, stunned. She recorded it. She knew. Elena's hands shook as she whispered, and now so does the world. The next day, they leaked the recording to the press. It went viral in hours. Headlines exploded. Langston heiress exposes decades-old corporate threat. Whistleblower's daughter uncovers truth. Justice for Clara Reyes. Avery was arrested within 24 hours. Charges: forgery, fraud, intimidation, obstruction of justice. But for Elena, the real victory came quietly. As she stood alone in her mother's old room at Langston Point, she lit a candle by the window and placed Clara's journal beside it. Your voice didn't vanish, Mom, she whispered. It just needed time to echo. Outside, waves crashed gently against the cliffs, and inside, for the first time in years, peace settled like a soft wind through the halls. Justice had come. But Elena knew it was only the beginning of a legacy built not on wealth, but on truth. The Langston Foundation headquarters buzzed with new energy. Staff worked tirelessly, not just on justice cases, but on building futures, housing programs, scholarship initiatives, mental health access. Eleanor walked the halls daily, sleeves rolled up, notebook in hand. She wasn't a figurehead anymore. She was the engine. One morning, a young man named Jamal entered her office nervously. "Miss Langston?" "Eleanor," she corrected, offering a smile. "Come in." He held a small envelope. I got this yesterday. It's from the foundation. A full scholarship. I thought it was a mistake." "It's not," she said gently. "We read your essay about working 2 jobs to support your sisters. About wanting to study architecture." His voice cracked. "No one's ever believed in me like that." Elena stood and walked around the desk. "My mother believed in people, even when the world didn't. I'm just continuing her work." He left with tears in his eyes. Later, William entered with a stack of letters. More South Point families responding. Most are grateful, some are still cautious. "They have every right to be," Elena replied. "We don't just apologize, we repair." William nodded. "I never imagined this life with you. It's more than I deserved." She looked at him, soft but steady. "You didn't earn it by blood. You earn it every day by showing up." He smiled. "That's the plan." That evening, Evelyn hosted a small dinner at Langston Point. Just family, staff, and a few South Point community leaders. There were no speeches, no cameras, just shared food and quiet healing. After the meal, Eleanor took a walk along the cliffs. William joined her, the wind tugging gently at their clothes. "She'd have loved this," Elena said. "She built the bridge between us without ever standing on it," William said. Elena stopped, looking out over the water. "Do you ever wonder why she didn't tell you?" He hesitated. "All the time, but I think she knew I wasn't ready, that I needed to fall before I could rise." "She waited," Elena whispered. "And when she couldn't wait anymore, she made sure I'd still find you." William placed a hand on her shoulder. "You gave me a second chance. Not everyone gets that. And you didn't waste it," she said. They turned back toward the house, its windows glowing warmly in the distance. On the porch, Evelyn sat with a cup of tea, watching them with a quiet pride. Inside, on the mantel, a new framed photo rested beside Clara's. Elena, standing at a podium, surrounded by students, advocates, survivors. She wasn't just a daughter of tragedy anymore. She was a builder of legacies, of hope, of fire that would never again be silenced. Months passed. Seasons shifted. What once felt like the ashes of a broken past slowly blossomed into a new beginning. The Langston name, long associated with privilege and scandal, was transforming into a symbol of redemption. And at the center of it all was Elena. She had become more than a face on a headline, more than a girl from the alley. She was now a speaker at conferences, a mentor to youth leaders, a quiet force behind sweeping policy changes for housing equity and education reform. But it wasn't without cost. Every step forward came with pressure. Eyes watched her every move. Some still doubted her, clinging to the belief that she was just a charity case who got lucky. One evening, after a long day of meetings and interviews, she returned to Langston Point and found a letter waiting on her desk. No stamp, no name. Just a folded piece of paper with her initials scrawled across the front. Inside, a single sentence: "She would be proud, and so am I." Tears welled in her eyes. William entered moments later, holding 2 cups of cocoa. "I made the one with cinnamon, the way Clara used to." She took the cup and sat beside him on the couch. "You think people like us ever really get past the shadows?" William thought for a long moment. "I don't think we escape them. I think we learn to walk with them. To let them remind us, not define us." Elena nodded. "Sometimes I still hear her voice when I'm speaking, when I'm tired, when I'm scared." "She's still here," he said gently. "In you." A week later, the city held a dedication ceremony at a newly constructed community center in South Point. Hundreds gathered, press in the back, children playing on the grass, elders seated in the front rows. Elena stepped onto the stage as the wind picked up, brushing her hair back from her face. She took a deep breath and spoke into the microphone. This center isn't just brick and mortar, it's a promise that what was taken will be restored, that no one should have to live in silence or fear again. She paused, voice trembling. And this is for Clara, for every mother who spoke out and was silenced, for every daughter who kept fighting. Applause erupted. From the back, Evelyn wiped a tear. William stood beside her, hands clasped, pride glowing in his eyes. And as the ribbon was cut, children raced through the new doors, their laughter rising above the sound of cameras and speeches. Eleanor stayed behind for a moment, watching. Then she looked up to the sky. "I hope you see this, Mom," she whispered. "We made it." And somewhere deep within her, she felt it. A hand on her back, a whisper in the wind. You were always meant to. The years passed with quiet grace. Eleanor's foundation flourished, expanding into multiple cities, touching thousands of lives. Her story, once a tale of survival and scandal, had evolved into a legacy of resilience, justice, and generational healing. Langston Point became not just a home, but a sanctuary. The walls were no longer haunted by what had been lost, but decorated with what had been rebuilt. Photos of community events, children's drawings, handwritten thank you notes. One spring afternoon, Elena stood in the garden beside the fountain she once scrubbed for scraps. But this time she was planting flowers, not just in soil, but in memory. William joined her, older now but still sharp, a cane resting lightly in his hand. "You've turned this place into something beautiful." "You helped," she said, placing a lily into the earth. "I followed," he corrected with a smile. "You led." They paused as Evelyn appeared with a small envelope. It came today. From the City Council. Elena opened it. A formal invitation. The City of Brighton honors Elena Reyes Langston with the Clara Reyes Civic Justice Award. Elena stared at the words, her heart swelling. They named it after her. "You made them remember," Evelyn said. "You made the world listen." The ceremony took place in the heart of the city. Elena stood on stage, her mother's shawl draped over her shoulders, her father and Evelyn beside her. The mayor spoke, followed by community leaders. But it was Elena's speech that echoed through the hall. "My mother believed that the greatest love was protection," she began. "She protected me with silence, with strength, with sacrifice. Today, we speak her name aloud, not in mourning, but in honor." She paused, scanning the crowd. "We are all built from stories, some heavy, some hopeful. But what we choose to do with those stories, that's what defines legacy." The applause that followed was thunderous. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed, Eleanor returned to Langston Point alone. She climbed the lighthouse steps barefoot, the way Clara used to, until she reached the balcony. Below, the sea shimmered like glass. She pulled from her pocket a small stone, engraved with her mother's initials. Gently, she placed it on the railing beside the lighthouse lantern. A permanent place. A quiet monument. The wind curled around her like an embrace. And for the first time, she didn't feel the ache of absence, only the fullness of presence. Her mother was here, in the wind, in the light, in her. Elena smiled softly and whispered, "I'm home."